G'day everyone, welcome back to a new YouTube video. If you're new here, my name's Tim Burgess, and in this video we're going to be talking about getting to know bird behaviour. Two questions we'll be answering in this video will be: how can bird behaviour get you a better success in bird watching, and basically a better hit rate on birds, if you want to call it that. Secondly, why you shouldn't just listen to me talk about bird behaviour on the screen. Bird behaviour is something that's best learned in the real world, and to really get it down pat you need to immerse yourself and all your senses in the bush where the birds are. Just before we get into the video, some of you who watched my last video might have noticed this shirt, and yes, it is the same shirt, but it has been washed, trust me. It just so happens that I got out here and I realised I was wearing the same shirt. So it has been washed. I've been at school for the whole week. Okay, first up, how can bird behaviour help you with getting better success rate when bird watching? Well, with bird behaviour, you can essentially predict what the bird's going to do next. You can get an eye for what types of perches certain species of birds like, so you can give a good guess that the bird will land there next. In my books, learning bird behaviour also covers habitat. So if you know the bird's habitat, you can have a better place to start out looking. But also not just knowing the habitat, for example, wrens and fairy wrens usually like grasslands. Also the microhabitats, habitats within the grasslands. Wrens, especially during breeding season and nesting times, like the densest part of those grasslands. So you might want to start looking there first when you go looking for them. Another behaviour I take advantage of quite a lot is the curiosity of birds. Some birds, especially like grey fantails, white-throated honeyeaters, even rufous fantails, can be quite curious, even though they are quite shy and hard to see. Sometimes, if you're in the right place, right time, they can actually come up and check you out. Yeah, things like grey fantails and white-throated honeyeaters, to list a few, are very curious. Sometimes if you sit down quietly and don't act threatening, they'll just come up and check you out within a few meters of you. Some of my most special moments in the bush are just from birds being curious and coming right up, and even once landing on me. Another behaviour that can be quite useful is seasonal behaviours. I know people in colder climates take advantage of this one quite a lot, because during the warmer months the birds' range is greatly expanded and there's lots of places for the birds to feed. But during the colder months, the birds have to go all into one very small place, and there's limited food. So sometimes during the colder months, the birds can actually become quite tame and used to humans, whereas in the warmer months, you can't get within 100 meters of them. In Australia, we can take advantage of some seasonal behaviours, like during breeding season, some species become much more bold and show off their colours. Another behaviour that can be very useful and has saved me quite a lot of times is knowing that if the species is a flock bird and say there's only one or two drinking at a waterhole, you should hunker down, find a good position before the rest of the flock comes, so you can get lots of great shots when the flock comes and you're ready for them. As many of you have probably figured out, bird behaviour is something that can only really be learned by being physically out in the bush and having contact with birds. And calls especially are one of those things that you just have to drum into your brain by being out in the bush a lot. Unfortunately, there's no real easy way to learn calls, but they are one of the most valuable skills you can learn. If you know bird calls, you don't even have to look for your bird. You can just sit down in an area you think it is, listen, and you'll hear it. Then you can just follow the sound and it'll lead you straight to it. Another thing with calls that I've found really helpful is for species of birds that don't actually call very much. You learn what species that bird is usually around with. So for example, scarlet honeyeaters don't call that much. They're always around white-throated honeyeaters and striated pardalotes, which are two birds, especially white-throated honeyeaters, that are very rowdy and loud. If you find the white-throated and the striated, you're most likely going to find scarlets along with them, at least in my area. And that leads me on to the next point, the actual area that you're in. Because even if it's the same species of birds, the same species can react very differently where you are geographically. So all the things I've said in this video, I know apply to the east of Brisbane. If you go down to Victoria, even with the same species, it could be a completely different ball game. And lots of species actually have different calls for where they are in Australia or the world. It's kind of like humans have accents. Americans have a different accent to us in Australia, and we have a different accent to people in New Zealand. Birds are the same. They have different accents wherever you go in the world, even if it's the same species. Calls can even change dramatically in breeding season and out of breeding season. So basically, there's no real easy way out of learning calls. They're just something you pick up over time, and I'm not the best at them either, to be honest. And another thing I forgot to mention is birds often return to the same place, whether it's the same perch or the same drinking spot in the afternoons and mornings. So if you know where they always return to, you can set up there, wait it out, and have the birds come to you, which is always the best way to get birds. It's least stressful for them and easiest for you. Cormorant just flew over. Oh, I guess that's another bird behaviour. Water birds often, before they land at a new water hole or dam, they'll circle around and check if it's safe. And if you're not hiding away very well, then they'll see you and they might not land, or they'll land on the complete opposite side of the dam from you. I always try and remind myself birds are quite smart, and if you consider yourself a great outdoorsman, even if you are by human standards, by birds live and breathe their whole lives in the bush, so they can tell if the stick is out of place or if something doesn't look right. So that's definitely something to remember when you're trying to get photos of birds or just bird watching in general. If you stayed this long into the video, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any more bird behaviours that I missed, because I know there's heaps, leave them down in the comments below for me to read. And see ya!